Now I'm going to talk a little bit about non-cereal grain based sugar sources. So the ones we use at Archetype primarily are dextrose, which is chemically identical to glucose. Sometimes it's sold as corn sugar, and Candi syrup, which depending on the manufacturer can be an invert sugar. Dextrose is a simple sugar that's derived from corn. It's chemically identical to glucose. We primarily use it hot side during wort production, and we use it in the boil. We typically add it at the 60-minute addition. I would recommend not adding it with any less time than 20 minutes left in your boil to ensure that it's sterile. When we use it primarily for gravity adjustments. So if we're making multiple batches of a beer and we're trying to hit our target gravities and we're under gravity, we can use dextrose to compensate that. We also have it built into certain recipes to increase the ABV without increasing the body. So what we're essentially doing is we're increasing the amount of fermentable sugars in the wort without increasing unfermentables. So it allows us to maintain a light body but increase ABVs for some of these higher ABV beers. We also use dextrose at Archetype for priming sugar. So anything that's bottle conditioned, we use dextrose to prime the beer before we bottle it. So we bottle our beer still, totally still. Everything that goes into bottles is, as right now, is barrel aged. So we're looking at relatively zero CO2 in solution. So that factors into how much sugar and yeast we're priming in the beer before we bottle it. So those are the two instances that we use dextrose in our brewery. So adding dextrose in the boil to create a drier beer kind of seems counterintuitive, but because it's 100% fermentable and easily accessible by Saccharomyces strains, it actually produces a drier beer in the end without beefing up the body at all. Because we are Belgian inspired at Archetype, we do use a lot of Candi syrup. And the Candi syrup we do source is processed only with heat. So it is technically an invert sugar. So what happens when you invert a sugar molecule, you're taking sucrose and it splits into glucose and fructose, which is more readily accessible by brewer's yeast. So the fermentability of Candi syrup is pretty close to 100%. We do use it both hot side and cold side, so wort production and during fermentation. I've seen better flavor development and better flavor contribution using it cold side. A lot of these compounds in invert sugar or Candi syrup like to volatilize during a boil, so you lose some of those compounds when you add them into your boil. So if you're going to add this in cold side, just assure that the manufacturer has packaged it aseptically so you're not infecting your beer. Candi syrup actually comes in a pretty big range of colors. So darker colors have been heated for a longer period of time. And essentially what's producing that flavor is Maillard reaction. So it's a combination of sugar and amino acid molecules via heat produces these flavor compounds. So essentially the darker the syrup, the heavier the flavor. So you can get Belgian Candi syrups that essentially are pretty close to simple syrups. Simple syrup is sugar and water, so it's not an invert sugar. But when it's processed via heat, even if it's for a short period of time, it becomes slightly inverted. We don't use a lot of lighter Candi syrups. It's honestly more beneficial to use dextrose if you're using it hot side just for ABV contribution. So if you're looking for flavor contribution, aim for more of the dark Candi syrups or rock candy or Candi sugar.